Okay, it is 12 o'clock on a Saturday and you've signed in, so we want to make sure that we get started right away. Welcome and thank you so much for being here. I do see a couple of familiar names, and I do see somebody that is just joining us right now. We do have a combination of people that are joining us today. So we have some students or teens that are on the line, as well as I do see that we have some educators and parents and people of that sort also that join us. So I'm going to kind of go, between both perspectives as to what you will get from this session. So what I'll do is I'm just going to share my screen with you, and we will get started. You may have seen that the session is being recorded. That is being used for our own purposes so that we can, anybody who wasn't able to join us will be able to see this recorded session. However, the way that it's being recorded, it is only for the facilitator's view. So your name, if you decide to turn on your camera, will not be shown at all. So please feel free to participate as much as you'd like. I will be throwing some questions out into the group. And it's always nice to have a bit of a conversation as opposed to me talking out into the virtual abyss, as I like to call it. So with that, I'll introduce myself. So I'm Diana Barbosa, and I'm currently working with the KnowledgeFlow Cybersafety Foundation as a facilitator, and I've been sitting as well on their board of advisors over the last few years. I'm also certified in cybersecurity and INC2 members. I've been trained in open source intelligence, which is really cool. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. And I've consulted on a lot of educational programs over the last 7 years, including Cyber Titan, Cyberstart Canada. I've worked with TMU, also known as Ryerson, Police Services, and some others. And of course, cybersecurity and cyber safety is near and dear to my heart, as I am the mom to 3 kids, a golden retriever, and 1 cat. So all of that actually is relevant to some of the things that we will talk about in cyber safety. If I could just get everybody, if you've got access to the chat, if you can indulge me and let me know what role you are playing here today. Are you here as an educator? Are you here as a parent? Or are you here kind of just for your own, personal curiosity? And that way I can get a feel for what things I can focus on. Great, thank you. I've got a mom and an educator. I've got another educator and a parent. Wonderful. And if you do not want to do that, that is okay as well. So what we'll get into, senior that has been hacked recently. Oh, I am so sorry to hear that. This, and I will tell the story. I recently fell for an online scam, and one of the things we'll talk about is how easy that will definitely can happen even to the best of us. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are safe. And one of the other main purposes of this session is to let you know why we're talking about this at all, cyber, and as you well know based on your experience, but as well to give you some idea of the course that is available through the Knowledge Flow Foundation. So the starting your course, cybersecurity, definitely why it's important, and we'll get into some of that because it is accessible for absolutely free. And though it was written in a way that's geared for teens, the information there is absolutely invaluable for all of us. So definitely nothing to when I say that it was for students, anybody can actually get value from this course. So we'll start kind of right off the bat. We covered a little bit of the housekeeping. It is a small group, so if at any point you have a question or a comment, feel free to take yourself off mute. I will be stopping for questions, so if you want to wait, you can do that. And if something arises that you didn't think of as we're going through it, I will also allow plenty of time at the end to answer any questions. And of course, as well, when I do put questions out there to you, again, feel free to put yourself off mute or to use the chat in order to communicate. I already covered the recording, and again, you as a participant will remain anonymous when the recording is used for other purposes. Uh, we'll talk about a little, we'll show you how to register for the course if you haven't done this already. It's really quite simple, and I'll leave this up actually as I'm speaking to it. We'll talk about that. We will also go into what is cybersecurity. I know some of you, I see some names here that I know you know this, but we'll talk about that, why it's important. We'll talk about why we need to stay safe, what are some things we can do to do that, and then just tie that all in with, I will walk you through the different modules that are available through the course, so that again, whether you are a parent and want to bring this forward to your own teams for yourself, an educator if you want to present this to your classrooms, and of course, for your own knowledge. So if you have a device in front of you, you can go ahead and start doing this, but it's really simple. You just go to the cybersafetyacademy.org website, and there is a registration option. You will set up your account. It will ask you to verify that email. So the only advice that I would give is if you are using a school board email. Sometimes those have some very strict spam filters on them. So if you don't see that email, do check your spam. I would suggest that if you have a personal email, that you can do that. And as well, for privacy purposes, if you are an educator, as I said, you want to make local universities have to give their information for last names or email addresses, things like that. We do have a way that they can do that anonymously, and you can just after you've created your own account, is reach out to a KnowledgeFlow, and there's also I will show you what that looks like on the screen. For teachers is you can then request a list of credentials for your classroom. So you would give your classroom a name. Perhaps I would say, it's Mrs. Barbosa's classroom, and I would say I need 20 IDs, and we will send you 20 credentials that can be used. And again, that way it keeps your students' information completely anonymous, but they can still access the course and use that. So just a little tip as you're going through this, if you are somebody who wants to perhaps enroll your entire classroom. Okay, so we'll get into the industry. What is going on in cybersecurity as a whole? And again, some of you may have heard these numbers before. They are really big, and they haven't moved much over the last 2 to 3 years. So there's a shortage of approximately 50,000 cybersecurity professionals, and that is at all levels. Part of this reason as well is that with the advent of things like artificial intelligence, some of you have been keeping up with the news, that is moving at an amazing speed. The roles are really changing. So where we saw a real influx a few years ago of a shortage of entry-level roles, now there are roles that span kind of all levels. Mid-level roles in cyber are huge as far as depth and breadth, as well as senior roles. And then other positions that you never thought that would be hiring cybersecurity professionals do need them. So for example, it used to be that we thought cybersecurity was something that was only required within the tech sector. So for example, the Googles of the world, the BlackBerries of the world. But the truth is that they are required in healthcare. Our hospitals have been hit, education, our school boards have been hit. and even restaurants, all kinds of travel, all of those industries now do require cyber teams, and they're starting to get into that, and that has that number, that shortage number growing. Worldwide, that is a big number. It's over 3 million people. That's right across the world. And right now, about 26% of those tech jobs are held by women. That is a small number. And the reason that that's important is because when you look at the shortage and the number of women in general available, there's a real opportunity to help fill that gap by getting women more involved in these tech types of jobs or in cyber. This also applies to all marginalized groups as well as persons with disabilities, where there is a real opportunity to encourage a real diverse group of people to join the cyber workforce and to be able to fill those opportunities. So right now, what I'd ask you to do is we'll do our first kind of participation. And it's if in the chat, you can throw in, doesn't matter, 1, 5, 20 words. What do you think of when you think of cybersecurity? What words come to mind? I'll just give you a moment. You can put some of those in the chat. Okay, great. So we've got high-tech companies. Be careful whenever you're in line. Defense, encryption, high-tech companies, safety. Yeah, absolutely. I always say I can't help it no matter how long I've been here. The moment I hear cyber safety, the first image that comes to my mind is, somebody in a dark room with the glow of the computer on their face, wearing a black hoodie. The hacker is what I get. I find when I'm also in front of groups of students, I also get the word hacker or hacking or any variation of hack on there. I see protecting people. Protecting people is a huge one. Again, when we look at opening up cybersecurity and cyber safety, the protection piece is sometimes things that people miss. We think of it as a very tech-focused role, so we tend to put ourselves into buckets of either being techie or non-techie, or being artsy, or all of those kinds of things. And the reality is that cybersecurity really does come down to people, and it's about people protecting people against other people from other people. So that is really what cybersecurity is about. And when it comes to our own safety, cyber safety, it's also important to think of it that way from a protection perspective, because if we put ourselves into that bucket of, well, I'm not techie, you're really kind of also falling into this victim mentality that there's nothing you can do because you're not techie. And that's absolutely not true. Cybersecurity is indeed for everyone, and cyber safety is imperative to everyone. And the more education you have and the more awareness, the easier it is to be able to keep yourself safe. Mahesh, thank you for turning on your camera. It's nice to see the face on the other side, and it's nice to see you. So importance of cybersecurity. So let's really nail this down to why this is important to us, because I don't see anybody online here who is coming to this session from a high tech job, right? Nobody here is working for the Facebooks or anything. But when we look at connected devices, and when I say connected devices, this is anything that is attached to the internet. The connected devices are part of all our lives. And I'll ask you in the chat to throw in any connected devices you can think of, whether you own one or you don't. Let's see how many connected devices we can come up with here. Our phone, a fridge, yeah, our computers, our internet, our tablets. Anything else? Hearing systems, yeah. Alexa, yeah. Oh, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Mine's going to turn on. I do that every so often. Phones, tablets, lots. Yeah, the Internet of Things, anything that is attached to our internet. I say when a temperature, yeah, I have my temp is set. Not only is my temperature set to the internet, but my what do they call those things? That's not the furnace, it's a thermostat. The thermostat is also comes with an Alexa, so I can play music from my thermostat. Security cameras, absolutely. EV, there is nothing almost right now that you can't get that can be connected somehow to the internet. And each one of those things pose different risks. And I like to describe each of those connected devices in our homes almost like, the more connected devices you have, the more open windows you have, right? So we're all very diligent when we go to bed at night or when we're home to make sure that our windows are closed and our doors are locked. But the reality is that you are more likely to be hacked, and people you know are more likely to be hacked than they are to have somebody crawl in their kitchen window in the middle of the night. And these connected devices, if you are using weak passwords, if you don't have your networks configured correctly, it's like leaving these digital virtual windows open that can definitely let people into your house. Cyber attacks are increasing in numbers and sophistication every single day. Just quickly, how many of you have received some type of either text or email in the past week that you know is fraudulent? Perhaps it's a package you didn't order telling you that you got one. Perhaps it's a friend asking you for something strange. Yeah, text, email, phone calls. I would say on my phone, I get something at least daily. Absolutely. And via email, I get those as well, quite a bit. Other reality that you should know is that the these devices, a lot of the ones that we have, were built with convenience in mind and not safety and not security. Because a lot of these started a few years ago when the sophistication wasn't as huge as cyber attacks, or it just wasn't being taken as seriously as it is today. So many of them do have what we call vulnerabilities, which is a way that they can access. I'm listening currently to this book that talks about the use of drones. So, for example, if you have internet at your house, and there could be a drone that is dropped at the top of your house that via Bluetooth or through a Wi-Fi can find your network, just like when you try to attach your network and you can see what all your neighbors have named it. And if you either don't have it password protected or you have a weak password, can easily get into your network. And again, if your passwords on your thermostat, your fridge, your tablets, your computers are not safe passwords, or sometimes don't even have passwords at all, definitely there can be hacking that happens, and information that can be taken from those devices. So again, something to keep in mind as you're going through that. Over COVID, the numbers really, really increased as far as cyber attacks are concerned. So we're not really, we all like to think that COVID was a lifetime ago. It sometimes feels that way. We've really, haven't come out of it for probably just about a year, that things have come back to normal, that we're starting to see a lot of in-person events, that people are getting back into the office. And during the COVID pandemic, a lot of people fell to these scams because you're looking at more of our vulnerable populations being online. So you're looking at many more students or young children that ended up being online, and as well many of our seniors who were not used to using their tablets or their computers to do things like their banking or connect with their family, started using email and apps more, and were also high victims. Then you fall into, every time I see this number, ransom attacks are estimated to cost $6 trillion. That is just such a huge amount. Does anybody here know what the $6 trillion would even look like in cash? I don't. When I still think piles of money, I'm still thinking like millions of dollars, right? Once you hit a trillion, I'm like, I have no idea, but that is a huge number. And I did read a report recently that had an updated number for what they're looking at for 2025. And I don't remember what it was, but I remember it was actually higher than 6 trillion for what they think that that's going to grow to. And of course, the 6 trillion is, although it's estimated, there is still a lot of cyber crime that goes unreported. Even with big organizations, big organizations are afraid to sometimes do the reporting because, of course, it they have a reputation to uphold, and a cyber breach not only costs a company a lot of money, physical cash, but it does cause reputational issues that can, in the long run, definitely have a higher cost. The last point down here, so 98% of cyber attacks rely on social engineering. Now, does anybody on the line know what social engineering is? Would you like to kind of share? And there's some examples there around phishing, pretexting, quizzes, and surveys. Tricking people. Yeah, absolutely. I like to call it, it's the one that kind of plays on the heartstrings, right? Facebook. Yeah, so Facebook is probably the breeding ground of social engineering. Absolutely. And you see, I have my question there that says, is there a risk wishing someone a happy birthday? And I would say wishing somebody a happy birthday when you run into them on the street or, giving them a phone call does not. But it can possess a risk when you do that online. So social engineering is really around taking information from people, usually information that people are happy to give. Like I see so many people on my Facebook answering those quizzes that say, copy and paste. What was the first school you went to? What was the first, vacation you went to? Things like that. And these are also a lot of verification questions that you see to keep people safe with their password when you look at multi-factor authentication. So this is all just information taking. Now, one of the things that I hear from people sometimes is like, oh, well, so what if they know the school that I went to? Or, oh, so what if they know my birthday? And the one thing to keep in mind is that, yes, that one piece of information may not be the end all and be all. It may not be the open door into your virtual house. However, this is not a short game about one piece of information. This is about putting multiple pieces of information together. So they can get your birthday from Facebook. They can get your kids' names from your Instagram that you don't have locked down. With Facebook, it might be, yes, your birthday was in one post, but there's also tons of other information you may be giving away in other posts. I have had at least two handfuls of friends over the last few years post pictures of their kids happily holding up their new driver's license, and all of them I've had to message, like, what are you doing? You're on social media, take that down. Uh, Especially because teenagers and young children are just very valuable as far as hacking is concerned because they don't yet have a uh, a credit record, but they are living real people, so that you can manipulate that information and get credit cards and get all kinds of things and stolen identities. So all of this together is all those little pieces of information is what is actually valuable. The other thing is that depending on how many things you have out there, so that includes all your online banking, all the accounts you've ever set up, think about every time that you've had to open an account, whether it's with an app or some organization, or sometimes you're just looking into something and they ask you to put in your email and maybe an address or maybe a phone number. If you're not actively removing that information from the internet, just because you don't use it anymore does not mean it doesn't exist, and you need to be very careful. Even though I said a few weeks ago I actually got scammed out of $400, and it was very embarrassing because again, I do this for a living. I should have known better. And looking back, I do see all the red flags. It still got me, but I have other people who say to me, "Oh, but what does it matter? I don't have very much in my bank account. Like, oh, they can go and get out and hack me." But you got to think a little bit wider than that, because what somebody can do is impersonate you with all the information you have and actually go out and scam other people. And again, we're seeing that with AI quite a bit. If you've been listening to the news, where in China, there is one case of $25 million that was paid out fraudulently because an AI that looked and sounded like the CEO asked somebody to transfer $25 million. But even on a smaller scale, this can be something that is quite damaging. So these are just things about, and again, I would say I'm not doing this to like scare anybody. It's just to be aware. I have very public profiles, even though like let's say my Facebook and my Instagram are friends only. I have a very public LinkedIn profile because I do this, like I've been using my personal phone number for business for many years. And so when I get pretty much any email or any text, I question it. So just even being aware of the risks puts you in a much better position. So here's a small sample of some of the hacks that have happened. And this is a tiny, tiny sample. But I put this here to show you how different they are, right? So there's no one industry that is more susceptible. So you'll see there's Ontario school districts, there's grocery chains, there's retail stores, there's a hog farm, right? There's an actual farm that got hit. The Toronto Zoo got hit. Indigo lost $50 million. And I would say that's probably about average to a lot of companies lose that kind of money just because they were able to take down their ability for people to shop online. Global Affairs Canada. So there's just a lot of big companies, whether they're public or private, they are all at risk. The one that always stands out for me to give you an idea of how organized cybercrime can be is what happened with Sick Kids Hospital. So last year, Sick Kids Hospital got hit by a ransomware, and it started affecting the ability for kids to get test results, to be booked in for important examinations and scans and things like that. And I got really mad at this particular hack because I was just so like, how could somebody be so awful as to hit a children's hospital? A couple of days after the attack hit, it was about 2 or 3 days, Sick Kids was still struggling to get back on their feet after the attack. Company reached out to Sick Kids Hospital, identifying themselves as not the hackers, but as the organization who had sold the ransomware to the hackers. So this is a very organized, like the hackers didn't have to be the ones who came up with the ransomware and doing all that stuff. They actually bought that. So this other organization is a business. So they came forward to the kids, apologized, and gave them the fix so that they could get their systems restored and get everything back to normal. And one of the things they did as part of that as well is that they said that they had banned the hacker organization from ever purchasing from them again because it violated their policies and codes of conduct. And that kind of makes me laugh because I'm like, it's such organized crime that they have a moral compass and they have a code of conduct where you're able to do A, B crimes, but you can't do C crimes. But just again to give you a feel for how how organized and how big this can be. Of course, it can also be a 15-year-old on a bike in the park with a laptop. That is how accessible sometimes hacking into somebody's system can be. The video is not working today, so I'm going to skip that. I am going to throw the link into the chat later for you to see it. It's So what happened in that video is there is this young girl who goes about her day and she runs into all these cyber problems that her family is having. And without realizing it, she's being a cybersecurity specialist. Because you have scenarios where somebody is getting one of those CRA messages. I just got one this morning that said there were, $1,200 ready to be put into my account, and I just needed to click the link in order to accept it. They also had things like, passwords that were not strong. And does anybody know? Let's talk about passwords for a little bit. Yes, thank you for saying ICTC made this video, and it is an absolutely wonderful video. So I will make sure to get that link to you for you so that you can watch it. But does anybody know how long your password should be in order to keep you safe right now? And I'll give you a clue. It's not 8 anymore. Like last year, it was at least 8 characters. The longer, the better. Absolutely. 8 to 12. The longer, the better. Yeah. Yeah. Right now, kind of the thing on the street is like at least 12. 12 is like the bare minimum and of random, so that they're not, I keep saying, everybody, this is when we go back to social engineering, when we're looking at, it doesn't help you if you have a 12 letter and character, if it's, 4 of the digits are your birthday, another 4 are your dog's name, and another 4 are your wedding anniversary. That does not help you, because those, again, can easily be guessed or hacked. So you want to make sure that there's at least 12 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters in order to be able to keep you safe. And we did already talk a little bit about some of the things that you have experienced, as far as whether they come via text or whether they're coming via emails. One of the examples that I like to share as well is a few months ago, I made an announcement on LinkedIn that I was working for a new organization. And within 2 hours in my email, I had an email that looked like it was from the CEO of that organization, who I report to, asking me to just connect with them when I had a moment. And initially, I thought it was a real one, so I connected. And then, of course, the next message was, and let me know, please put it in the chat if you've received this one. It's the one where they're asking for Amazon gift cards. So please, I'm at a meeting. I forgot to bring gifts for the board members. Can you please buy these gift cards, send me pictures of them or the numbers, and then you can expense it and I'll give you back the money. At that point, I recognized it immediately and took a closer look at the email and realized that it was a scam. But again, within 2 hours of me making that announcement, I had that email. Yeah, the gift cards are always so random, I find. But it's just cash. It's just ways to get money. So how do you stay safe? And really, education and awareness are number one. Just knowing that these scams exist, knowing about social engineering, already gives you that heads up, because you're going to be wary. I have a friend who just yesterday sent me a message, and it was a screenshot. It was a Facebook, and said, "Hey, I just got this. It says that I'm trying to change my password. I think this might be a scam." And of course, it was. But a lot of people, if they don't even know that that happens, will just go ahead and be like, "Yeah, absolutely, it's legitimate." From an education and awareness perspective, you can also take it that extra step. So for those of you who are parents, there's the cyber safety component, that you want to make sure that your kids, no matter what age, because they are on devices from a very young age, are aware, age appropriately about the dangers, about when to come to you, or as again they get older, how to secure and what a safe password is, and what the risks are of you putting all their information and putting pictures online with them wearing their school uniform, tagging all their friends, like all of that is definitely important. And the same for you as parents, because none of us are safe. The second piece of that is that have your students or children explore cybersecurity from that more technical perspective. One, we need the people in the industry, definitely more people to join those cybersecurity ranks. And cybersecurity roles, and they talk about this in the course. It has at the end of every module, it talks about different roles within cyber. You don't have to sit and be able to read code. You don't need to be able to write code. There is a role, leadership, program management, coordination. There are all kinds of non-tech roles as well. I'm considered somebody in cybersecurity. My specialty, I have never written a line of code in my life unless you count Scratch, which they teach like in the grade 2 and grade 3 level, right? Um, but I'm on the cyber education side as well as on the operations side. I do have that knowledge. So again, it's just a huge, huge spectrum. And the other thing I say with that is that that is education that will never go wasted, because if they decide to not follow a, a career in cybersecurity and they decide they're going to be a professional dancer or a dog walker, which they will still be using computers. If they are writers, they need to make sure that their computers are locked down and safe to protect their intellectual property. Everything uses an app this day. And I believe the stat is that 90% of jobs right now require some sort of technology. And I'm always challenging people. I haven't found a role yet that wouldn't at least benefit from something. And I always use dog walker because I had this conversation with a barista once and they said dog walking. And I said, yeah, but there's apps for that, right? You can use apps for that, and those things need to be locked down as well. So that safety side is very important. And passing on what you learn is hugely important. And no matter what I'm talking about in these sessions, because I do all kinds of them, is always if you walk away with one little piece of information, if something's jogged your memory, if you knew this before, but maybe you heard a different way to say it that really simplifies it, share that with somebody else. Go and please spread the word around cyber safety and cyber awareness, because it really does help people. Don't assume anybody knows anything, especially because it's constantly changing. The scams are constantly changing. Okay, so with that, that's really the landscape of why this course has even been developed. And with the charting your course to cybersecurity, so it's called charting your course, the map from cyber safety to cybersecurity. And the difference there is cyber safety is really looking at your personal safety, how you are online, how you protect yourself, things like luring, things like cyberbullying, human trafficking, sextortion, those kinds of things fall under cyber safety. And then when you're looking at cybersecurity, you're looking at the protection of assets. You're looking at the protection of the networks, the integrity of the information, the accessibility of the information. So that's kind of where they go hand in hand, but they are a little bit two different things when you're looking at them. And then, of course, there's the career side. And this course covers all three. It covers the cyber safety, the cybersecurity, as well as the exploring careers. Before I go into the course content and walk you through that, does anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about so far? Or I've done most of the talking. Okay. Give me a moment to have a drink. Okay, so these are divided into different levels. So the first thing that you'll come into is your explorer level, and there are the three main topics. This is really kind of introductory around, what is cybersecurity, talking generally about cyber safety. When we look at your cyber opponent, is really who is it that we are protecting against? And we always use the broad term hacker. However, there are different types of adversaries, or what we call threat actors. And so there is a lesson to look at that and just really figure out what is what is going on and why they're different. And then of course there's a piece on the education as well as the career. So that's one thing that I hadn't mentioned yet, is that the course will also cover educational options, because cybersecurity is one of these careers where you can be very successful by following a very what I'll call traditional education path, the one that I grew up strongly believing in, which is you finish elementary, you go to high school, you go to college or university, and then you come into the career world, or you get a master's, a PhD. All those are available as well within cyber. However, with cyber, you actually have other paths. There are many where people come out of high school and do boot camps, or other 1 year programs, smaller programs to get into it. Some people do that, plus they get certifications from different certifying bodies. Some kids come out of high school and just go directly to do certifications and get roles. We have some people who are quite successful in cyber who didn't finish high school, but through their own curiosity and self-education, with reading, with what I call YouTube University and certifications, have also found a path in cyber, as well as I mentioned earlier, there's so many different careers within cyber that there's also different pathways there. So the course actually does walk through quite a few of the pieces. And I've noticed I've got Deborah on the line helping me there, and she's put the link for the video in. Then the course goes into the Guardian level. So updating your fortress, talking about how to do regular updates on your systems, which is hugely important. Those updates are for making sure that anything that's been found or anything hackers have found their way around are now secured. And the course will actually take you not just like, why is it important to update it and all of that. We know that. It actually goes into the how. So it'll walk you and have instructions for you on how to do these things. And then we talk a little bit about malware, how to identify it, how to prevent it. Then, of course, protecting your gadgets. So this is when we talked about mobile devices and things like that. Looking at the policies and what are they saying? What are they saying when you say permissions? And just if you could give me, if you have read a privacy policy in the last month, let's just see, or any policy or terms and conditions in full, give me a thumbs up in the chat. So if you have taken the time in the last 30 days to read policy, or if you've agreed to, not even I read them. So that's Deborah from KnowledgeFlow. And I do have to say, I just recently purposefully went looking at privacy policies, and I've been reading cookies policies, and I've skimmed, yes. And again, thanks to the knowledge flow, the information that I have received from the knowledge flow, I now know how to skim a privacy policy. So I wouldn't say 100% of the time, but I'd say 60% of the time I will still skim one. I have lately taken a keen interest into cookies and cookie policies. And so far, Deborah, you'll be happy to know that yours at Knowledge Flow is the most impressive that I've read, just based on how simple and straightforward it is. I finally know exactly what it is that I'm agreeing to. But those are really important skills to have, so that you know, and I said, it's not about staying away to stay safe, but understanding the risk so that you can work within that risk. Lastly, under charting your career, we cover the Canadian Cybersecurity Skills Framework and take a look at what does that framework say, and then look at what are some of the jobs that are available out there. Again, though, that list is growing, right? As technology changes, so are some roles, and there are going to be jobs and careers that exist 5-10 years from now that we do not know today. After the Guardian level, we move into the Sentinel level. So we look at personal information. How do you secure your digital presence? One of the activities that we actually do, I think it was in the module before this, is looking at our own digital footprint to actually do an inventory of what we have, what we use, what we don't. I recently did this with a group of students, and even they were really surprised at how many apps they had that were just sitting there with a lot of information that they didn't even use anymore. We look at how do you keep an anonymous profile online, if there's a way to do that in order to protect your own privacy. And you look at protecting, we talk a lot about passwords in this one, as well as how can you monitor your own accounts as well to see if there's any activity that shouldn't be happening. And of course, one of the great things as well that's covered here is how do you actually lock down that account, and what do you do if you are breached? The reality is that you can no longer avoid being hacked in some way or experiencing a breach. So it's not a question of if anymore. What it is a question of is how badly you will be hit and how quickly you can recover from it, which are the kind of strong points about that. After Sentinel level, we move into the architect level. And this is how do you set up data backups? This is something that I'm still not good at, that I need to be, because my little tiny phone that I drop at least 7 times a day holds a lot of information that I should probably be safeguarding. Also practicing data destruction and disposal. So, and this is something that even I hadn't thought about until probably the last year or so, but I keep so much information digitally. At some point, it's probably a good idea to start removing information and deleting data that I no longer require. Because again, that can help to, should you be breached, all of that historical information, it might not be relevant to you anymore, but there could be something that a bad actor could do with it. So that can minimize how badly any pieces of identity theft can be. We look at data encryption. I like that somebody said, it's on the to-do list for a while. Yeah, for years. You got to get to that, Sheena. So do I, trust me. I still have paper boxes, so I'm not very good on the on paper either, but something that definitely needs to be done. The other great thing here is adopting safe file sharing practices, and this goes from everybody, again, educator, parent, teen, really developing good habits for sharing files across platforms. How many of us just pass information on without thinking about it? I know my mom recently sent me a picture of her passport information in a way that I think is not very safe, as well as credit card information or any other things that can be hijacked. So there is a way that if somebody's in your network, as I'm emailing something to you or sending you a text, that somebody can kind of go in, and it's almost like literally pulling it out of thin air in the middle and taking that information. And one of the great things about this course is that not only does it bring the awareness about what these things are and what the risks are, but then it goes into the actual, this is how you do it, which I find, and I've been doing this for quite a while, is missing from a lot of other programs out there, which again, it's fine. It's not to say any of those are bad, because the awareness piece is huge. This one really goes into some of the technical components of it. Sheena's saying, I'm finding more apps, especially hotel stay apps, require driver's license photos, and that makes you nervous. Yeah, so this is really important when you're looking at How am I connected? What information did I give them? What is their privacy policy? What kind of security are they using? A lot of times they do, I've done it too, where I've had to upload a copy of my driver's license because they're just trying to confirm that you are who you are. Uh, but you need to understand as well is what is, what is secure. You really uploading that into a site that's necessary. Today, I got one of those messages from a friend where a friend of hers is competing in something. So they asked, can you please, vote for her? And I said, sure. And then I voted. I tried to vote, but they wouldn't allow me to vote unless they could verify that I was real, which I understand. But to be real, I had to log into my Facebook account. And then the permissions under my Facebook account was that I was giving them access to my name, my pictures, and all of my contacts. So I politely declined voting for this person. And because I just didn't feel that in order for this person to win something, I needed to give up a lot of my information. This is new behavior for me. 5 years ago, I probably would have just clicked right through. But again, knowing and being aware of some of the risks, I can make better decisions for myself. And hopefully you can make them for yourself as well as your students or your children. Okay, after architect, we go into sage. So understanding digital privacy harms. Some people say, so what? So what if somebody knows, where I went to school? So what if they have this information? There are some very real harms. And this particular module is really interesting around that, say crossroads. It's a real overlap between privacy and cybersecurity. Uh, we look at this is the module where you get to look at what do you need to look for in a privacy policy. There's an activity that allows you to see how vastly different policies can be. And it really brings to light how simple policies should actually be. There's no need for them to be as complicated as they are. And many times the reason they're that complicated is because it makes it difficult for us to spot where there are things that may actually be breaching our privacy, but we are giving them permission to. This module also goes into cookies and the different types of cookies. So every time you go into a website, I'm sure all of you, okay, here's the question. How many of you in the last week have read the cookies policy when you've gone into a website? Or have you just hit agree to all? Anybody here over the last week taken the time to read the cookies before you hit agree to all? The chat is very quiet. Okay, so knowledge from you don't count, Deborah. Oh, and my hash. Okay, okay. Yeah, you see, Linda never. I never did before. I absolutely never did before. I have looked at it. There are three different types of cookies. Even I thought cookies were cookies. There are different types of cookies. I'll touch on them really quickly for you, Linda. There is a cookie that is just for that one session that it says it's gonna just give you a better experience. It's going to, be able to tell what you're kind of looking at and clicking on just for that session. There are, and kind of everything goes away. There are ones that stay on for longer. So these are the ones that keep your, let's say, username. So every time you go back to that website or that account, some information is pre-filled for you, and that stays for a while. And that one you can accept or not accept. And then the third possibility are what are third-party cookies, which really you are now allowing not even just the company or the website you're looking at to have access to your activity, but you're actually given access to a third party as well. And the crazy thing is that third party's privacy policy might be different than the one, even if you took the time to have read the privacy policy of the one that you're going into. So just something to be aware of. And this course goes into that. It goes into the trackers. It teaches you how to read those things and how to identify them. And then, of course, make decisions based on that so that you understand your risk. Our covert ops level is next. So this is we go deep into social engineering, phishing scams, tactics that can be used. It's always good to understand all the different tactics that are being used. Also, we look at how to mitigate the risks. So how do we discover resources that are available so that we can actually relieve or avoid the effects of breaches in an effective way. And then we look at developing good habits. So the understanding and the importance of safe online habits so that we're ensuring security when we're navigating our digital world. It really is about habits, just like we have habits to just click accept all or to perhaps I used to, go to Tim Hortons and log into their public Wi-Fi all the time. And here's a funny story that I'll share with you was one of the ways that we say sometimes you can actually protect yourself in public is to use what's called a VPN. And that VPN is kind of think of it as a like I think of it as like a secret tunnel into the internet that doesn't point directly back to you specifically. So my son has been using VPNs forever. And the other day he was on a Go bus and he went to connect to the Go bus internet with his VPN on. He received a message that said that it detected he was using a VPN and that he was not allowed to use public Wi-Fi unless he turned his VPN off. Then it blatantly said that without the use of a VPN, that he would be at risk of using a public network and that his activities and information could be accessed by third parties. So he sent me a screenshot of this and I couldn't believe it. I thought that it was kind of funny that they're out there saying, hey, we're not going to allow you to do this, but what we're not allowing you to do is putting you at risk. I love that face, Sheena. But the reason it was just out there is because I can guarantee you that probably 90, if not more percent of the population doesn't even read it. And or they don't really understand the risk. And that was that. I'm actually got to get him to send me that screenshot because I want to attach it to one of my presentations. But I thought that was really interesting. So sorry, but back to the covert ops here. I'm looking at how do we do things safety? How do we get rid of those bad habits that tell us to just hit accept all the time, get us into that habit of taking just a few more seconds to do that scanning. It would be ridiculous for me to tell you to read every word of a privacy policy of terms because we are bombarded with them. There are just so many, but you can get better at knowing how to follow safe sites and what to do once you're there. And of course, what to do if you are hacked. Then we fall into finally our strategic command level. So this is our mastering. So understanding the social media algorithm. If any of you on here are like me, the algorithms just kind of blow my mind. Sometimes they are way too specific. The way my social media knows me and wants to and shows me exactly what I find entertaining, how vastly different my kids and I sat the other day and compared our Instagram as well as our TikToks, and they are vastly different, just again, based on our behaviors. So understand how all of that works. And really also identifying misinformation, disinformation. This is so important in this day and age. There is so much misinformation, disinformation going around. It's hard to tell what are real resources with the changes that have happened with social media as well, where news outlets are not are not using social outlets in order to get the news out. There are more and more of these, I don't know what I could call like pseudo news outlets that look like news, but they're not. That spread misinformation, disinformation, and really important, again, not just for the youth to understand these things, but for us as adults to do that. We go into AI and understanding how AI can be used in cybersecurity, AI is actually a wonderful thing in safeguarding. and to being used to cybersecurity, but it's also excellent on the hacker perspective because it's making hacking more efficient. So it's this constant, I call it a little cycle. It's a little cat and mouse game that we're constantly playing between the good guys and the bad guys, using AI both to protect and to attack. And then finally, we look at assess source of credibility for online safety. So this is evaluating the credibility of information on social media and other platforms, and understanding that reliable sources are key to avoiding cyber threats and maintaining personal online safety. This is the end. We get to our championing cybersecurity, and we're just at time here, so I'll give you a second. But there is a kind of a TTX is for a tabletop exercise, so it's a bit of an immersive scenario that you or your teams can play to really get a feel for what it's like in cyber. There's other activities around what's the harm. So these are again immersive activities to get you to practice some of the things that you have learned, and who will you protect today. So looking at all the different things that you have put together, that you have learned, and as I mentioned, always be passing on that information and sharing